Okay, so today we're going to talk about a two-book series called the Kingmaker Kingbreaker duology, as it were, by Karen Miller. Now, I purchased these two books from a local book sale. Uh, my two books are a little well-worn, just shows that they were very much enjoyed by other people before they got to me, and I happen to enjoy them as well, so I thought I'd do a book review on these two. Uh, there's actually multiple versions of this out now, as I recently learned. Karen Miller's website actually came up as Australia-based originally. I had to reset the region code so I could find the right covers to sort of match what I'm going off of, but as I said, the author is Karen Miller. Her own website is, conveniently, karenmiller.net, as you can see on the screen. She's actually written some interesting stuff that I was not aware of before digging deeper. She's actually done some Stargate SG-1 stuff, which I'm going to have to track down at some point, because I love that series. And whoever does the artwork for her covers is really awesome, because there's apparently another series, the God Speaker series, which I'm going to have to track down because that looks pretty interesting. And she's also done some Star Wars stuff, not Star Trek. So yeah, interesting. Alright, let's start with book one, which is The Innocent Mage. Now, it's from 2007, so it's not old by any means, but it's not exactly brand new either. To give you an idea of what this series is about, the back cover for this one says, "The innocent mage is come, and we stand at the beginning of the end of everything." How's that for dramatic? Being a fisherman, like his father, isn't a bad life, but it's not the one that Asher wants. Despite his humble roots, Asher has grand dreams, and they call him to Durana, home of princes, beggars, and the warrior mages who have protected the kingdom for generations. Little does Asher know, however, that his arrival in the city is being closely watched by members of the Circle, people dedicated to preserving an ancient magic. Asher might have come to the city to make his fortune, but he will find his destiny. So yeah, the main character is called Asher, and he has a very amusing dialect that goes throughout both books, and it's one of the first times in a good while since I've actually read one of the main characters having a unique dialect that doesn't really... It's not like, this is my dialect, but hey, everyone else has it too. No, it's more like his little fishing village has their own mode of speech, and then you go up to the prince's place and they're a little more fancified. Alright, if that wasn't enough for you, the inside blurb, which is always interesting to read because it kind of gives you a little better idea of the style of writing rather than just the little elevator pitch on the back of a book. The inside one for this one is, "Without thinking, Asher jumped into the path of the frightened horse. A lifetime of sailing boats in untamed weather had honed his reflexes and made him indifferent to danger. Catching those flapping reins was just like laying hold of a loose halyard in high winds, battling the beast to a standstill not much harder than wrestling with a netload of fish reluctant to die. And besides, it seemed a shame for a fine animal like that to break a slender leg just 'cause some royal folderol couldn't keep his arse on the saddle. It'd be fine, I reckon," he said, determined that his elegantly clad prince was a man, like him, who pissed and farted same as all men did, and had nothing more special to recommend him than an expensive tailor. Don't seem like the beast's taken any harm, barrin' a fright. The prince glanced up at him. A flicker of recognition lit his eyes, and he nodded. Standing straight, he looped the reins over one arm, and then dusted his hands on his breeches. So it would appear, Barl be praised. He kissed the solid gold holy ring on his left forefinger. He was a gift from His Majesty. "A great gift," said Asher. "Glad I could save him for you. I'd be fine too, by the way, in case you were wondering. Yeah, so Asher has a bit of, it doesn't really show in the little preview, but he has a bit of a temper to him, and definitely an interesting personality to him. The first book really starts delving into the whole who has magic and how do they use it and why. And there's a decent amount of politics involved as well, since really only the ruling family is supposed to have the weather working magic, which kind of protects the overall realm from ultimate evil. Conversely, the sequel, which is The Awakened Mage, really delves in deep and explains everything that book one does not, as sequels tend to do. This one really gets a little messy. Certain people don't make it to the end, which that happens when you're fighting the ultimate evil. It's kind of an all or nothing deal. Some people don't make it, some good, some bad. That's the way it works. To give you an idea of how things have changed a little bit, the back cover for this one is "The evil foretold has risen, and we are all that stands between it and the end." Again, dramatic. Asher has come a long way for a fisherman's son. Together with his friend Prince Gar, he has defended their kingdom against its bitterest enemy, but at great cost. Now, the evil mage Morg is preparing for his most deadly assault, and this victory would be particularly sweet, for who better to destroy the kingdom than the two who would give anything to save it? Yeah, Morg is the ultimate evil of doom. He's this evil sorcerer who kind of figured out how to survive for a ridiculously long amount of time. Not technically immortal, but close enough for government purposes. And the weather working magic is what kind of held him at bay, and then complications arise because of politics and stupidity and the way people just generally are. So then they have to actually fight him head on. And that doesn't go over very well, because the guy's had multiple lifetimes worth of time to plan and plot and scheme and figure things out and how to get around stupid human politics, or in this case just, I don't think they're technically called humans, they are what they are. They're humanish. Good enough. For the inside blurb, it's a little shorter, but as Asher left the stable yard, frowning, a nasty thought occurred. Yesterday, Gar had gone to his family's crypt to create the effigies, but that wouldn't have taken all day and night. Not unless something had gone terribly wrong. Brisk walking turned into a fast jog, then an all-out run as he headed to House Torvig's private burial vault. He was panting, streaming sweat by the time he reached it. Glimfire still burned in the passageways. Not a good sign. He took 4 wrong turns before finally stumbling into the small, glimlit room Gar had selected to house the coffins. He found the king sprawled face down on the flagstoned floor. Okay, that's actually a lot easier to read than to speak. And the Glimfire and Glimlit, it's like magical sorcerer fire that most of the magicians can use. It's like the 101 level or apprentice level stuff that they learn. The weather working magic is the top level where supposedly only the ruling family can use. I will only say supposedly and not spoil the rest for you readers. But it's interesting to actually have a nice little duology where pretty much everything is wrapped up by the end. You get a lot of closure from the various little strands of who's doing what amongst the politics and the government, and who wins and who loses in all those respects. Like who's going to maintain power over the magic versus just over the people, and how do they deal with the ancient evil? How does the weather working magic fit in since that's what held the evil at bay, and it's kind of alluded to that the magic is no longer enough. And it's interesting to see how the various character roles progress from both books, as you have Asher, who's kind of the main character, and then Prince Gar, who's the royal prince and is kind of the counterpart to Asher. He's not an antagonist by any means, but those two really play off of each other, and both of them progress considerably from page 1 to the end. And it's interesting to see how they kind of flip-flop in responsibilities. Sometimes one is more responsible than the other, one has more power than the other, and they go back and forth. And the various sidelines as to what their initial motivations were to kind of get them rolling through the plot change by the end considerably. I mean, Asher's primary goal was to kind of prove to his father that he can be his own man since he's a younger child, and he won't really inherit much of the family business. So he kind of goes off on his own, goes to the royal kingdom, and that's how he gets involved in all those shenanigans. And then Prince Gar is also, he's not the younger child, but he is the less important child in some respects due to politics and magic. So he kind of wants to just find his own way to fit into society, as it were. And then his priorities change as well throughout the story as the evil unfolds and becomes a little more troublesome. But I feel like both characters actually got the closure that they needed by the end, although it was one of those situations where almost by the end I wanted to throw the second book up against a wall in anger because of how some of those characters played out at the bitter end. But that just shows it's good writing and that I got invested in the characters. So it's definitely a decent little 2-book series worth investing in. And I mean, granted, I got these at a used book sale, so they were about 50 cents for the 2 of them, because that's the way used book sales go. But they're currently $7.99, and it's probably, oh no, the first book is $7.99, and then the second book is $6.99, for reasons I'm not quite sure. Normally I would think it would be the other way around, but I mean, unless you want brand new copies, you can easily enough find this at your local library or a used bookstore if you happen to have one conveniently nearby. Both covers are pretty easy to spot on the if they're open like this, and let's see, if they're on the shelf, they actually kind of match up against each other. My copies aren't the best to show this, considering the spines are a little messed up, but you can see how the 2 mages do merge together. It's just different colors to show the progression from one to the next. So one is innocent, and then one not so much. But yeah, definitely a good 2-book series published by Orbit. So definitely go check it out. The links to Karen Miller's website, where you can find more information on this all, will be posted in the show notes section. And if you, let's see, I believe if you go to each book's page, there were sections where you could find more information about it. There were in the Australian versions, but then I switched it to American and it got a little funky. Bear with me. There were links, I swear to you. I mean, if all else fails, if you want to look them up, I mean, you can go to Books A Million, Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, your local bookseller website of choice. It's just Karen Miller, and then the Innocent Mage and the Awakened Mage. Although, depending on where you are based, just to give you an idea, if I can reset this, it actually does change titles, as I learned while researching this. In Australia and New Zealand, it is The Innocent Mage and Innocence Lost for the second book title. That surprised me and kind of threw me off, actually. And they do have different cover art, which is very nice within itself. Yeah, so for the Australian versions, they do have where to buy the book, but on the American region page, that is not available. So just depending on where you are, figure out where your regional booksellers happen to be and go take a look. All right. Enjoy reading, everyone.